Despite owning my 350Z for a year now, I'm only just getting around to installing this thing. And it's because I didn't know I had it and I didn't know it existed. And it turns out it's actually quite rare, and most specs of the 350Z from around the world never had this. So what is it and where does it go? I'm going to tell you, but before I do, how on earth have I ended up with this thing for a year and not knowing about it? And it comes down to the kind of funny way that I ended up with this 350Z. You see, I never intended to buy this car. Not that I bought it, I kind of just ended up with it as a kind of happy accident. The story plays out a bit like this. My parents are keen caravanners and spend a lot of summer and autumn caravanning. And I planned to go and see them. And at the time, I had a 2002 Bug-Eye Impreza wagon. The reason I had that is because we'd recently got a dog. When we got the dog, we had a van, a Citroen Dispatch, that we'd converted into a camper stroke band van. And I, at that time, had an Impreza saloon Bug-Eye that we thought the dog couldn't go in very well. In hindsight, the dog travels on the back seat of a car now, and it would have been fine. But in order to transport the dog, we decided to get rid of the Impreza saloon, and I changed it for an Impreza wagon so I could put the big dog grate in the back. But the Impreza wagon wasn't always the most sensible choice of moving the dog around, and we couldn't do it in the van very well because she'd have to sit on the middle seat between us. So we got rid of the van and bought the Civic, the little Civic that we now have as our daily. So we kind of ended up in a situation where we had two sensible cars. Not that a Impreza wagon is that sensible of a car, but it was good for transporting the dog around while still being a performance car, so it ticked a lot of the boxes. But I was slowly eyeing up less sensible cars, and the 350Z was very high in that list of cars that were an option, that's similar kind of price range, rear wheel drive, decent performance cars. And one like autumnal afternoon in September of last year, I went to see my parents at a caravan site, and I drove up in the Impreza, and it was just me by myself. Now, because of where the caravan site was, I was driving up the motorway past Coventry, and I needed a break, so I just pulled over into a service station in Coventry, and there in the parking lot was a 350Z. And you don't really get to see them very often just out and about on the road, so I pulled over next to it just for a bit of a closer look. And whilst I'm, just taking a look at it, checking it out, the owner of the car came out of the services, saw me looking at it, came over and spoke to me. He was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was just like, "Oh, I'm just taking a look. I really like the 350Z. I'm considering getting one. How do you find it?" It's like, "Oh, I love this car. It's really good. Been really reliable. Mechanically, it's really good. Couple of small bits of rust, but honestly, I think I'm going to get rid of it." I was like, "Oh, why? Why are you going to sell it?" He goes, "I'm only 19 and the insurance is just gone up and it's just crippling me." So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, what are you going to get instead?" And honestly, something probably a bit like yours, something that's got a decent amount of power, but is a bit less sporty, because that's what really seems to be ramping up the insurance for me. You can probably guess where the story goes from here. So I said to him, "What about this one? What about this Impreza? Would you be interested in this one?" He goes, "What? Really?" I was like, "Yeah, I've been eyeing up getting a 350Z. I'm going to get rid of this Impreza. I'm probably going to sell the Impreza to buy a 350. If you're interested in this, why don't we just trade cars? I happen to have my V5C on you. I don't suppose you have." And he went, "Actually, yeah, I do." And he opened up the boot, and there was just a bunch of stuff in the boot. There was the old airbox from where they upgraded to a Mishimoto intake, and there was the head unit, and there was this weird plastic thing that we're about to install. And amongst all that stuff, he had his V5C. So we, spent 20 minutes chatting through it, checking insurance quotes, giving each other's car a test drive around the car park in this Coventry service station. Then swapped details, wrote a piece of paper with I agreed for the trade of this car, filled out each other's V5Cs, did insurance quotes on our phones, and disappeared in opposite directions in each other's cars. I was the proud owner of a 350Z. He'd got an Impreza, which he could actually afford. Apparently, the insurance for him was like 1,200 quid a year less. Good result. For me, it was pretty much the same. But I am in my 40s, so advantage there, I guess. And I turned up to my parents' campsite in a completely different car to the one I'd left in. I think that was a bit of a shock. My dad was like, "What the hell have you done? Why have you got this?" And I told him the story, and yeah, there we go. This is how I ended up with a 350Z. But all that stuff that was in the boot, when I got home, I was just like, okay, it's probably stuff that I'm not going to need. So I just put it in storage and I put it in the loft. And I was up in the loft looking for the box for my current Kenwood head unit because I'm selling it, because I'm doing a whole change in the center console. And I saw this big plastic thing, and I suddenly was like, oh yeah, that was in the boot. I wonder what it is. Got it out, did some Google Lens on it, and it turns out it's this really kind of rare privacy shelf that basically only the UK spec of the 350Z ever got. So you don't see them very often. There's a bunch in Europe, loads, every single UK one came with it, but it didn't come in the American or, as far as I'm aware, the Japanese spec. So let's go take a look at it, see what it is, where it goes in the car, and then let's install it and see how it looks. This is the strut bar, and then in this gap you can see down to whatever is in the boot of the car. I know it's hard with the reflections, but you can take a peek down there, see whatever I've got in the back of the car, and this piece is designed to stop that. Now when they come OEM, these have a kind of plain black piece of meshed material in the middle, but I've replaced mine with the same material that I have here, and also it's been repainted in a better plastic black because I've repainted all the plastic in here black. But yeah, it's dead simple, and there are basically a couple of little slots and holes that this slips into, and I have found them already on this panel piece and cut the holes ready to install this. So let's put it on, I guess. The biggest pain of doing it is going to be these strut bars because they don't hold this particularly well at the moment. But there are two, should be slits around here. Which way around does it go? And I've found the slits already. There we go. In. And then we need two of these plastic push rivet things. Go through there, through that hole. Lock it. And there we go, that's it. It's just this little bar that sits here. And the idea is now, when I close the boot, you can't see into it. So let's take a look. So, there we go. Privacy. No more peering and seeing what I've got in the back of the car. Dead simple. The pain of this thing is the fact that it's obviously added weight to the boot lid, and with the Alcantara and the Rocket Bunny spoiler, it already has enough pain staying up as it is. I need to get some like tighter strut bars, but I mean, it does stay. Oh no, I spoke too soon. Now, you can find these things, though they are few and far between. There's a couple on eBay, and I believe there's a bunch of places in Germany that sell them. I'll put the product code in the description, so if you wanted to find it, you can do it with that, and that'll be a lot easier way of doing it. But I think that's quite cool, and it's a nice simple addition that I think when I open the boot, as I often do when I'm talking with other 350Z owners and we're comparing what we've done, they'll be like, ooh, because I've not actually seen one installed on another 350Z before, which is weird because all UK spec comes with them, and I pretty much only see UK spec cars. There you go. What do you think? You like it? Do you have one, or are you going to find one, put one in your Z? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, whatever you do with the rest of your day, folks, have a wicked one, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy, peeps. Bye-bye.